Alrighty, well, good evening, everybody. I think we owe you a bit of an explanation. Very sorry, we did get stuck in traffic, so I blame the economy. But anyway, welcome.
Going down the tubes.
Welcome to another riveting, thrilling, any other adjective you want to use, installment of Myths and Monsters. As is the norm every week, I am Billy Reed.
I am Curtis Cooper. Welcome to a watery adventure, everyone.
And we are here to talk about a very prolific archetype in the world of cryptids, the lake monster.
The sea monster.
That's all you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, Loch Ness.
I was expecting
Nessie?
some kind of, witty comment.
No, I didn't really have anything witty for the Loch Ness Monster. It's just a big, kind lizard boy, honestly.
Well, anyway, a quick introduction, Lake Monsters 101. Lake monsters, as I previously stated, are one of the most commonly reported types of cryptids, and every continent, except for Antarctica, obviously, has its variation of a lake monster. So, Now, the most famous lake monster, and one of the big three of cryptozoology, we cannot talk about any type of sea creature without talking about the good old Loch Ness Monster.
Nessie.
Hey, what are some of my pipes?
Kilt.
But anyway, the Loch Ness Monster is the most famous lake monster, and it has been sighted in Loch Ness in
What
Scotland.
does Loch Ness mean, Billy?
Well, I mean, loch is just the Scottish word for lake, so...
That was for all you listeners who are not Scottish.
Now, the Loch Ness Monster, I'll talk about this more in a minute, but there are a lot of varying descriptions of it, especially in the early years. But the most common one is of some sort of aquatic reptile with a very long neck. And it's supposedly able to walk on land as well, but not very well, and prefers to stay in the water. Now, legends of a serpentine creature in Loch Ness actually date all the way back to the 500s AD.
Whoa, that's back.
However, the first official sighting of the creature did not occur until 1933, when a lovely couple, Mr. and Mrs. Spicer, were driving home one night on a country road near the loch, and they saw a large, they described it as a blob-like creature with a very long neck cross the road and go into the water. And they specifically likened it to some sort of prehistoric animal. Now, this sighting was reported on by the local media, and the Loch Ness Monster took off like a rocket. Everywhere you went then, everyone was saying they had seen this thing. And later in 1933, a few accounts came forward claiming to have seen it a year earlier in 1932. An anonymous Scottish woman actually came forward shortly after the Spicer account, saying she had seen the creature in 1932 and described it as a cross between a lizard and an otter.
Oh, that's smaller.
And a man by the name of Colonel Lewis Fordyce claimed to see a creature with a camel's body and a dinosaur's head gallop across a road in some woods near the loch, also in 1932. But he didn't come forward with his sighting until 1990.
It's amazing how all these people come out of the woodwork, huh?
Yeah. Now, in 1934, a veterinary student by the name of Arthur Grant, that's not a typo, his name was Arthur, not Arthur.
Well, that's authoritative.
And he actually ran into a large creature near the loch on his motorcycle. And it just kind of looked at him like, dude, what the heck? And just kind of moseyed into the water. But he described it as a cross between a dinosaur and a seal.
All of these are varying sizes.
Yeah. And he described it as having webbed flippers with visible digits, much like a seal. But it had a reptilian neck and tail like a dinosaur. So do with that what you will. And from this account, we actually have our first reported sighting of what is considered the traditional Loch Ness Monster today. So this is like the most accepted version of the Loch Ness Monster. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you
Sorry,
just fine.
Brad just texted me and he said our voices are cutting in and out in like a weird, distorted way.
Well, that's weird.
Well, if that's the case, it's not anything we're doing. It's probably just something wrong with the recording.
It's something wrong with Brad.
He doesn't mean it, Brad. We love you. So, very sorry about that. Just try to make... Oh, he said, never mind. It was just us.
See? It was just Brad.
We still love you, Brad. But anyway, so yeah, this was the first reported sighting of the traditional Loch Ness Monster. So pretty much every year going forward, this was what it was accepted that the creature looked like. So early on, it was a lot more varied in terms of what it looked like, but from here on, this is pretty much the way it was described.
Oh, just to cut in a random thought, it is episode 13. We should have saved the Black Cat episode for episode 13, huh?
Yeah, but it had to... What else would we have done for our Halloween crawl?
Pumpkins? I don't know.
That's fair. Pumpkins. I saw a pumpkin just the other day. I think they're real.
Nah, it's probably an owl.
Yeah, most likely. Or a weather balloon.
Yeah, usually a weather balloon.
Now,
As you were.
Now, with the Loch Ness Monster, you cannot talk about the Loch Ness Monster without talking about the famous surgeon's photograph.
That's the photograph, right?
Yeah, which is probably not just... It's probably not just the most famous portrait of the Loch Ness Monster. Like, it's right up there with the Patterson Bigfoot footage.
I was about to say, like, those are like the big two.
The most famous cryptid photo of all time. So let's go over the specifics. So what is the surgeon's photograph? You've probably seen it even if you don't know that you've seen it. And it depicts a dinosaur-like head and the slight image of a back of a creature sticking out of the loch. And it was taken in 1934 by Dr. Robert Kenneth Wilson, who was a British man visiting Scotland at the time, but he was actually not a surgeon. He was actually a gynecologist.
Whoa. Well, that's a little bit different.
Yeah. Now, the photograph quickly took off. It was featured in dozens of newspapers all over the world. And in 1975, after years and years of people debating the authenticity of it, experts looking at it, animal experts, photo experts, everything. In 1975, it was actually revealed. Two brothers came forward, revealing that they had teamed up with Dr. Robert Kenneth Wilson to fake the photo.
Oh man.
Now, you see, their dad had recently been fired by the local newspaper in their town, and as a way to get back at the newspaper, they decided they would feed them a fake story.
Oh man.
So they took a photo of a toy submarine that had a fake dinosaur head attached to it in the loch, sold it to Robert Kenneth Wilson, I think was his name. I was just seeing if I could remember that without looking at it. Anyway, the gynecologist, they sold it to him because they thought he would be a more reputable source, and he thought this would all be in good fun. And he then went and sold it to the newspaper. And they didn't expect this story to blow up like it did. But much like the Roswell incident we talked about last week, to this day, many people believe that the photo is legitimate, and this whole thing about it being a hoax is just part of a massive cover-up.
Well, that's wild. I did not know that, actually.
Yeah.
Because, like, this photo was, like, perfect. Like, in terms of, like, it looks like a far-out picture of a Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, it's definitely a very well done... Well, like, here's the thing. The way they did it in the 1930s, like, yeah, that's obviously would look good back then, but, like, if they had tried to fake something like that today, it would probably be a lot more easy to figure it out. Because, you know, cameras are so much better today, and photo editing is such a... And that's the thing, that photo isn't even edited. Like, they've built a fake monster. So
are there any other photos of this thing that people have come forward with?
Well, there are a few other photos out there, but most of them can either be easily disproven or just flat-out fakes. Like, I know there's one really famous one that came out a few years ago that was pretty quickly shown to just be a seal. And there's actually one, probably one of my favorite, if not my absolute favorite cryptid photo of all time.
Is this the seal?
It's... Yeah, no. I think that one's a bird, actually.
Oh.
But that's a different one. Probably my favorite cryptid photo of all time is one of the Loch Ness Monster just kind of like swimming right off the coast of like this abandoned castle on Loch Ness. And it's just such an eerie photograph. I love that photo so much, but I'm pretty sure that one was either proven to just be a flat-out fake or they said it was a boat or something. And, like, the thing is, other than the surgeon's photo, none of them... Yeah, that one.
Oh, that's a really cool photo. We should post that on the Instagram.
Yeah, that one's really nice. But other than the surgeon's photo, none of these photos actually show any real defined figure. They're all just kind of these big masses.
Yeah, these big blobs.
Yeah. So, photo evidence, while very plentiful for the Loch Ness Monster, is not the most reliable.
How big is Loch Ness, like the lake?
It's very big. Actually, it's one of the deepest lakes in the world.
So kind of hard to like comb every every
and
little.
Not only is it super deep, because it's over 1,000 feet deep, but it also has a lot of systems of underwater caves.
Ooh,
so
that is so cool.
There's a lot of room for stuff to hide in there. It's a very
say.
big lake. So yeah, to the monster's credit, there's a lot of room to hide in Loch Ness. But perhaps the most popular theory for the Loch Ness Monster, and my time to shine, boys, is that the Loch Ness Monster is in fact a living plesiosaur.
It's dino time.
Well, you see, what is a plesiosaur? Well, plesiosaurs were long-necked marine reptiles. That means they were big lizards that lived in the water.
With cute little flippers.
With cute little flippers that lived during the age of the dinosaurs. And today they are believed to be distantly related to modern-day turtles. And they are probably the only real creature that is like the biggest close resemblance to the traditional Loch Ness Monster. And to this theory's credit, plesiosaur fossils are actually very abundant in Scotland and have been found near Loch Ness.
Ooh, interesting.
However, most reports of the plesiosaur description of the Loch Ness Monster feature it having that weird swan-like neck that kind of bends vertically, like in the surgeon's photograph. Here's a problem. In recent years, it was actually discovered that plesiosaurs were physically incapable of doing that with their necks.
Oh, why?
You see, their neck muscles were actually really, really stiff just to kind of give them a more aerodynamic shape to let them move through the water more easily.
Is this an accurate photograph?
Nope.
Oh.
Their necks weren't that bendy. Think of a plesiosaur as more of like a living torpedo.
Oh,
so
interesting.
If a plesiosaur actually tried to bend its neck the way the monster in the photo does, it would break its neck and die.
Oh,
so
poor Blessy.
That's depressing. So that's the big problem with the plesiosaur theory. Now, let's go back to 1933, to the first official account of the Loch Ness Monster from the Spicer family. Here's the big problem with the Spicer account, and this goes back to our good old buddy confirmation bias.
Oh no, it's like our worst enemy.
You see, both Mr. and Mrs. Spicer did admit to the local authorities that actually very shortly before they encountered the creature on that back road, they had watched the original 1933 film King Kong at the local movie theater. Now, something about the original King Kong is in the 1933 version, there is actually a scene where King Kong fights a plesiosaur.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Which considering that was a 1930s version of a plesiosaur, it looks like the traditional Loch Ness Monster a lot more closely than the modern one does. And one of the Spicers, I think it was the wife, I don't know. Weirdly enough, I couldn't really find their names anywhere. It was a long time ago, so I might not have been doing good enough research. But I'll just say Mrs. Spicer specifically described the creature that they saw on the road as looking like the swimming dinosaur from King Kong.
Well, that's kind of damning.
Yeah, just a little tiny bit. And an interesting piece of Loch Ness Monster news that actually happened this year.
Ooh.
So I want to introduce all the listeners out there to a brand new scientific practice, a little marvel called eDNA.
That sounds fancy.
Stands for environmental DNA. Now, you see, animals, humans included, everywhere we go, we leave behind a little bit of our DNA in the form of like sweat, blood, skin cells, everywhere.
Makes sense.
And it never really goes away. So with eDNA, what we can do is, say theoretically, we can like take a cotton swab and like swab like say the sidewalk, or take like a sample of dirt in a field and analyze it. And by isolating the DNA in that sample, we can tell every animal that has passed through that location within like the last 100 years.
That is insane.
Yeah, super cool. But the problem is, it is still a new practice, so there are a lot of kinks to iron out. But earlier this year in 2019, a water sample from Loch Ness was put through this process. And it was found that no unknown species were living in Loch Ness at the time.
Aww.
But, like I said, this is a new process. So it still has a lot of kinks to iron out.
Fair.
And in the list of species that were found in the eDNA results, quite a few species that are known to be native to the loch actually didn't show up.
Oh.
So,
So it's incomplete.
yeah, incomplete, but
Inconclusive.
inconclusive definitely on that one. But another thing I should mention, though, is that while I was looking up animals that are native to the loch, a few creatures popped up that I think could very, very easily be mistaken for a monster. Big one, seals. Seals don't live in the loch year-round, but about once a year or so, they migrate in through the rivers outside of Loch Ness that actually feed into the ocean. So I think a seal could easily be mistaken for a monster, especially with that pesky confirmation bias. And also, two creatures that I really, really think are likely. Loch Ness is home to thousands upon thousands of freshwater eels. So eels kind of look like a snake.
They look like little noodles. So.
And on top of that, there's another beastie in Loch Ness called the Wells catfish. Now, Wells catfish, it's just a catfish. Nothing really remarkable about it. But the thing about Wells catfish, these guys are monsters. The biggest Wells catfish get to 200 to 300 pounds.
Whoa, that's huge.
So these things are beasts. And obviously with a lake as deep as Loch Ness, they get especially big in there. So I think if a big one came up to the surface, I would probably think it was a monster.
Yeah, especially at night when your endorphins are running crazy.
And like it's already super murky water as it is. So yeah, that's all we have to say about the Loch Ness Monster. So
Billy, let me tell you about a couple more fun monster sightings in various lakes. Let's start with the Lake Champlain Monster. Now, Lake Champlain is a lake shared by New York, Vermont, and Quebec, Canada. And it is 125 miles long, and it is home of Champ. That is what this sea monster is called, Champ.
is he John Cena?
I guess so. Like he.
Well, that explains why we haven't found him. We can't see him.
Yeah. Like he's just the coolest. Because what other cryptid's name is Champ? He's the champ. If he would have fought in the monster bracket, he would have won by default because he's the champ.
Yeah, obviously. Like, he would have wrecked Bigfoot.
So there have been over 300 sightings of the champ in this particular lake.
The champ?
The champ. That's just what I'm going to call him because he's the champ.
He's
He or she or they, whatever. I don't know if lake monsters have specific genders or not. Now, the first semi-credible sighting was in 1819. And this is when a sea captain named Captain Crumb.
Captain Crumb, huh?
He seems like a nice, reliable witness. He sighted a monster he claimed. Now, this was just his claim. He claimed it was 187 feet long.
That's a really weird number to just roughly estimate.
And he said it was roughly 200 yards away from him. So he squinted and he was like, yep, 187 feet.
Okay, at 187 feet, this thing would be bigger than a blue whale.
Yeah, it would be.
That would make this the largest animal to ever live.
He said that, this is a quote from him, 2 large sturgeon and billfish were following behind it. And he was able to see that it had 3 teeth and eyes the colors of peeled onions.
What color is a peeled onion?
I don't know, kind of like a dull yellowish.
That's a really weird analogy to make.
He also described the monster as having a belt of red around its neck and a white star on its forehead. So it was a communist.
Wouldn't that be a red star?
Red star, whatever. But yeah, that was the first. I use semi-credible loosely there, as you can tell. And funny story, P.T. Barnum actually offered a reward for the capture of this creature.
That's actually not the first time something like that's happened, because during the 1909 Jersey Devil incident, the Philadelphia Zoo issued a reward for the capture of the Jersey Devil.
I mean, makes sense. Draw some eyes and ears to your publication or circus or whatever. And the most popular photo is called the Mancy photo. And I'm gonna show you this photo here, Billy. And I want you to describe to the listeners what you see.
Well, I mean, yeah, that looks like a dinosaur. It does. It looks like a long-necked dinosaur just chilling in this lake.
Yeah. To me, it looks kind of like a stick, though.
Yeah, it looks like driftwood, but it's driftwood
Yeah.
in the shape of a dinosaur.
That's fair. Now, in 2003, there were dolphin sounds reported coming from this lake, and the lake is not home to any dolphins. Weird. So what do you have to say about this Lake Champlain monster, the Champ?
Well, the dolphin thing is pretty weird.
Yeah. Now,
But-
is there any evidence of plesiosaurs using any of that kind of...
No reptiles use echolocations, so that would be really, really
That would rule out a
weird.
plesiosaur, then.
Not really, because, like, it's not impossible.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's possible that, like, a lot of extinct species could have adaptations that we wouldn't associate with something like
Fair.
that today.
But no modern reptiles do that.
Nope. As a matter of fact, only animals I can think of that do that are dolphins, whales, and bats. So,
Which are all mammals.
yeah. So that's strange. That's very strange. But, like, other than that, the rest of this just seems like, local urban
Yeah.
legend folklore stuff.
That's mainly what
But
it was.
That dolphin sound thing, that's very weird.
So I'll let you stew on that a little bit before we get to the what is this segment. But let's talk about one more friendly neighborhood sea serpent named the Ogopogo.
Ogopogo.
The Ogopogo.
Ogopogo.
That's one word for you all listening, wondering. The Ogopogo. Now, it is said to be 40 to 50 feet long. It is a sea serpent, obviously, and it resembles an extinct Basilosaurus or a Mosasaurus.
And for those of you unaware, a Basilosaurus is actually a prehistoric whale.
Which is weird because like all the artist depictions I found of this looked more like your typical like sea serpent with like fins and stuff like that Pokemon Rayquaza for all of
Yeah.
you all who are well versed in the Pokemons. Now, a lot of scholars around where the Ogopogo is found say that it is more of a figurative beast, and they say that like some of the local natives think of it as more of a water spirit type of thing, where like it's this more figurative thing that watches over the waters as opposed to be this real like dinosaur thing per se. Now, digging into it a little bit, in 1968, Art Folden filmed what is claimed to be a footage of the alleged creature, and it showed a large thing moving across the water.
Not a thing.
Yeah, a thing. A computer analysis of the footage concluded that it was a solid three-dimensional object. A thing.
Good lord. Has science gone too far?
Yeah.
A solid three-dimensional object. What have we come to as a species?
Folden noticed something large and lifelike, in quotes, in the distance out on the calm water and pulled out his home movie camera to capture the object. An investigation was conducted by the National Geographic TV show in 2005. The show was called Is It Real?
Oh, yes, I'm familiar with that show.
And it was revealed that the object Folden had filmed was indeed a real animal, but its size had been greatly overestimated. It was probably a waterfowl or a beaver. Beware the sea beaver.
Oh, man. So first we got owls, and now beavers.
They're just ganging up. Like, the animal kingdom is hostile.
And all these forest animals are coming to get us.
Now, let's jump in the time machine and head forward about 6 years to 2011. A cell phone video captured two dark shapes in the water. A suggested explanation is that the video shows two logs. Rad?
I mean,
Yeah.
that's not the worst explanation for something like this.
No.
Like, why are we always so quick to assume that every weird thing in the water is a monster?
Yeah, I don't know. That's just human nature, I guess. Now, the National Geographic guys analyzed this video as well and concluded that the video quality is poor and the camera is shaky, but a closer look at the 30-second video reveals that instead of one long object, there are actually two shorter ones, and they seem to be floating next to each other at slightly different angles. There are no humps, nor head, nor form, only two long, darkish, more or less straight forms that... Well, wait, 1 second. That lost my place. 1 second. More or less straight forms that appear to be a few dozen feet long. In short, they look a lot like floating logs. which would not be surprising since Lake Okanagan, which is the lake, has tens of thousands of logs harvested by the timber industry floating just under the lake's surface. It's a lake of 10,000 logs, Billy. 10,000 logs.
That's a lake of logs.
Yeah.
It's a lake of logs if I've ever seen one. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
I'm telling you what happened here, and I'm being serious. I'm not even being facetious.
Okay.
Long time ago, some logger probably saw some logs he thought was a monster, went around into town telling everybody he saw a monster. Then some old Native American guy probably told him about this old water spirit legend, and then he was like, "Oh, the fish river, I see the monster," and then everybody's talking about it. That's probably what happened here.
In September 2018, there were reportedly 3 sightings, one of which was described as a giant snake that was 49 feet long. What do you say about that, Billy? Kind of irrefutable evidence of
Do we have
the
any?
serpent.
Do we have any physical evidence? Any photos? Anything here?
None.
So we're just going on somebody's word that they saw a 50-foot snake.
Yeah. Well, how about this? How about you tell the listeners something while I look up Google images of this thing?
What, a 50-foot snake?
No, the Okapogo.
Well, I'm really not buying it. Man, this show is getting depressing. For the last couple of weeks, we haven't really been buying it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let's see. We got this picture, which I'll let you describe to the audience.
That's just a log.
Okay. How about this one?
That's a log.
All right. I see that and raise you.
What am I even looking at? That's a boat.
No, I'm talking about this.
That could be anything.
So yeah, the Ogopogo, not the most credible story out there.
Well, that's sad.
Yeah. So let's change gears. Let's change gears to something a little more fun.
Okay.
William Reed. How's this thing real?
You want me to rationalize all 3 of them or just one?
Just
of them?
one. Just Loch Ness. Let's do Loch Ness because everybody loves Loch Ness.
Well, Loch Ness, let's see. Plesiosaur fossils were found in Scotland, so it's not unlikely that maybe one of them could have survived. Who am I kidding? That's not a thing.
It would have had to have been 2 of them at least.
Yeah, at least 2 of them, because we have to have a breeding population and whatnot. So,
And also, what would be big enough to hunt them to like near extinction?
a mosasaur, because that would have been like their main predator would be mosasaurs.
Which you would think they would have had to have lasted a lot longer than mosasaurs to
like
live today.
without a predator to hunt them, they would have bred out of control. Because nothing.
Then
would
we'd be
have fed
riding
on
them to work.
Yeah, nothing would feed on a fully grown plesiosaur. So
How big could they get?
the biggest one that I know of is the Elasmosaurus, which is about 50 feet long.
Whoa, that's huge.
So it's a big boy. But the actual Plesiosaurus, which is the first one ever discovered, is only about 10 feet long.
Okay.
So that's a small boy. Mm-hmm. Okay, so got it. Let's switch gears.
All right.
All right. Another reptile that's found on every continent except for Antarctica, and actually does have a long neck that it can stretch into that weird swan shape. A turtle.
Oh.
Okay, there's actually a type of turtle. It's called the snake neck turtle. They have a very, very long, freaky neck that they can actually bend in that weird swan shape, right? And I don't think they're native to Europe, though. I don't know where they're native to.
Oh man,
off the
this
top of
thing
my
is
head.
just the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah.
If this thing just stuck its head out, like you could just take a picture, like a perspective picture, and that's the Loch Ness Monster.
But the problem with snake neck turtles is they are small boys. Like, they're probably not much bigger than a big dinner plate, honestly. So, let's say that a population of snake neck turtles somehow evolved to deal with colder temperatures, because I think they're found in, like, more southern regions. Yeah, they're freaky looking boys, aren't they?
I don't know. It's kind of adorable. He's so happy. Look how happy he is.
They're just so happy to be alive.
Listeners, Google snake neck turtles. You won't be disappointed.
So, I'm proposing that perhaps the Loch Ness Monster is some evolved, very large, more cold water species of snake neck turtle. And the thing is, a lot of more aquatic turtles like that don't really come out of the water very often unless it's the breeding season. So in a very big, very deep lake like that, it's not unreasonable that some kind of big species of turtle could survive and not be detected.
Yeah, and plus turtles tend to live a long time too.
Long time.
So not as many generations.
But because adrenaline and confirmation bias is a thing, for our scenario, let's say that this isn't really a turtle the size of a car. Let's say that this is maybe a turtle the size of, say, a sea turtle. Because they're pretty big.
Yeah.
So take the size of a sea turtle, but with a really, really long, freaky neck. And that's what we've got
I could
here.
see it. I could see it.
So there we go. Super turtle.
Super turtle. Like, okay, super turtle versus super bat. The chupacabra, that is.
Yeah.
Who you got?
Well, could the bat bite through the turtle's shell?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It would just be able to outlast it, you think?
Yeah. In theory, yeah.
And he just starts swinging his long neck around.
Yeah, and then eventually just go into the water, and the bat's like, oh, I can't swim.
I am at an impasse.
And then he just gets on a bus and moves to Fresno.
The end. So there you have it, listeners.
A play in 3 acts.
But yeah,
So, yeah.
I like that explanation a lot. Shall we move on to some percentages?
Yeah, let's move on to some percentages.
All right, so let's start. Let's start up with percentage chance. This is a huge plesiosaur that's like at least 50 feet long.
Nope. 0% chance.
Aw, why not?
Because even in a lake that huge, if a population of creatures that big that would need to come up for air probably at least once a day was living there,
Oh, so plesiosaurs had to breathe?
I mean, they're reptiles. They don't
That's
have
fair.
gills.
That's
so
fair.
they would have to come up for air at least once a day. So, yeah.
Yeah, and there are too many prying eyes at this point.
Yeah. So I'm not 100% convinced we wouldn't have found it by now.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go 0%. That it just makes no sense that those things would like be in that lake specifically, at least. Now, if we're talking like ocean stuff,
Yeah.
like it wouldn't surprise me honestly if something huge still
No,
exists that
no.
we don't know about.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if like mosasaurs were still out there.
Ooh.
Because those of you who don't know, mosasaurs are the big water thing from the 2 Jurassic World movies. And the thing about mosasaurs is mosasaurs were the top predator of their day.
The
Like,
T-Rexes of the sea.
yeah, basically. The biggest one was Mosasaurus hoffmanni, which could get up to 60 feet long.
Whoa, that's
These
huge.
things ate sharks. Like, we have fossil evidence that confirms they ate sharks.
That's intense.
Like, nothing could stop these things. They were unstoppable forces of nature. And to think that they covered such a vast territory of all the world's oceans and then just vanished without a trace,
That's weird.
that's a little strange, especially because, like, when we look at all the animals that survived the dinosaur extinction, like the main ones, we've got turtles, crocodiles, sharks, fish. You noticing a theme here?
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense because aquatic animals would be able to seek shelter easier
Yeah.
in a climactic event.
Yeah. So I think if any Mesozoic creature is still out there, I think it's the mosasaurs. Because, I mean, we don't know anything about the ocean. We know more about space than we do the ocean. So,
Like, okay, if you just had to throw like a random broad number on it, like how deep could a Mosasaurus go? Like without like just the pressure killing it.
well, here's the thing. To survive in our modern day, they would have had to have evolved to get a little smaller. Because, like, a full-on 60-foot one probably couldn't survive today without being detected.
Yeah.
And it would have to, like, pretty much exclusively feed on whales. So,
Yeah.
but let's just say they're about the size of a great white shark now. So then I think they could probably go down at least as deep as a great white, which I'm looking it up. How deep can a great white shark go? Say
All right.
something entertaining while I look it up.
Well, if you all like dinosaurs, you should play the Fossil Fighters video game for Nintendo DS. Because me and Billy used to play that in 8th grade, and it was great.
A great white shark can go down at least 3,900 feet.
Whoa! How many feet is in 1 mile?
5,280.
Wow, like over 2/3 of a mile. That's pretty
Yeah.
deep.
So yeah, I think if a mosasaur could go down that deep, because great whites mostly stick to the surface to hunt, but they probably spend most of their time down low because they don't like humans very much. Contrary to popular belief, sharks really don't want much to do with humans. So
They don't taste very good.
no, like sharks don't naturally hunt humans. The only time they'll attack humans is if they're confused, a human has a bleeding wound, or if it's out of self-defense.
Or if they're like
So-
encroaching on their space.
Yeah. So sharks don't really want much to do with humans, and I can't imagine a mosasaur would be any different. So, yeah, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility that a mosasaur could be out there somewhere. But plesiosaurs, not buying it.
Oh, you don't think plesiosaurs are out there at all?
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. Because, like, they could be. I think mosasaurs are way more likely because they
Do you think
were...
mosasaurs would be the biggest, like, dinosaur that could still exist?
Well, I mean, maybe, because I think, yeah, I'll say that, because the ocean is such a vast place to hide. And there have been a lot of reports of dinosaur-like creatures in other places, but I just don't buy it 100%. Like, because there's one in Africa, the Mokale Mbembe is what it's called. And the natives in the Congo, they talk about this thing like it's the biggest, meanest animal in the jungle. And they swear up and down that this thing is actually a long-necked dinosaur. And
Whoa.
I just don't buy that 100%. Because, like, how could there be a population of... Because, like, sauropods, which are the long-necked dinosaurs,
Yeah.
those are the biggest animals to ever walk on land. Like, they were gigantic.
Huge.
And even if they evolved to get a little smaller over the years...
They'd still be
How-
so conspicuous.
Yeah, how would we not have found them? And I get the Congo is a huge place. Like, there's an old saying that the explorers used to say, and that's if your plane goes down in the Congo, you better pray that you die on impact because you're not going to last the night.
Ooh.
So the
yikes.
Congo is a very big, very vast, very treacherous place. But at the same time, like, I don't know how these huge herd animals that, like, elephants eat a lot of leaves every day. So imagine how
That's
much...
nothing on what a brachiosaurus would eat.
Yeah. So imagine something like that and a whole herd of these things existing out there, and we haven't found them.
Yeah,
Like-
a little unlikely.
That's a little far-fetched for me. So I think if anything from the dinosaur age is still out there, it's got to be creatures that lived in the sea.
Makes sense to me.
Not megalodon, though. That's another thing for another day.
The Meg?
Yes, Mr. Jason Statham. The Meg.
Not the most realistic movie.
No. So, we got any more percentages?
Percentage.
We got sidetracked there.
Hey, it was a fun sidetrack. What is the percentage chance that those pictures, like these sightings that people are having, are of something undocumented?
I don't think that's impossible. I just think it's unlikely.
Yeah, I think it's
So-
it's a greater than zero chance.
Yeah, I'll say about maybe a 20% chance.
Yeah, I'd probably say like 15%, something like that.
Yeah.
And then percentage chance that at least in these 3 lake scenarios, there ain't nothing fishy going on there. No pun intended.
Nah, there's a decent chance. I'll say about a 50% chance.
So 50-50 something fishy's going on there.
Yeah. Like, the big one for that is the Lake Champlain with those dolphin sounds that
That's
were
weird.
recorded. Because that's really, really weird.
What would be the most likely creature that would make something like other than an actual dolphin?
Well, you know,
obviously?
there actually are freshwater dolphins, but they only live in the Amazon River in South America.
Wild.
And they're, like, super, super, super rare. So,
It'd be kind of wild if they got all the way over to Canada.
yeah. And, like, even if they did, like, if they were the ones, like, say if someone stole a dolphin from the Amazon
Yeah.
and just decided they were going to drive it to Canada, like that one scene in The Boys on Amazon Prime where the deep liberates a dolphin. And he just drives all the way to Canada. These dolphins are meant to survive in the Amazon rainforest, like a really hot, really humid environment. And to just shove one into a lake in Canada,
That'd
where
be
it's really
problematic.
cold. I don't think it would last very long.
Yeah, because it's a mammal.
Yeah, so yeah, I just don't know how to explain that. Like,
Yeah, it's freaky.
because like there aren't any freshwater whales, there are no swimming bats. So yeah, unless there's some species of freshwater dolphin in Canada that we haven't documented, I don't know how to
Yeah,
explain
because
that.
do Doffles, not Doffles, Doffles,
What's a dolphin?
Pokemon. Are there any dolphins that live in a non-warm environment?
Actually, yeah.
Really?
Up in the Pacific Northwest, there are some species of dolphins that live out there.
So it's at least possible from a temperature adaptation
yeah.
standpoint.
But the problem is those dolphins are saltwater dolphins.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of a Venn diagram of dolphins that like live in warm or hot water and live in fresh or salt water, and like the only freshwater dolphins in the world live in warm water. And the only cold water dolphins in the world live in salt water. So there's no overlap there. There's no freshwater dolphin that lives in cold water. So
That we know of.
yeah, that we know of. But so yeah,
That'd be
that's
wild.
that's very strange. That's very out of the ordinary. As for the one in Canada, I think that's just Native American superstition mixing with local myth and kind of
Sensationalism.
yeah, and just creating something new.
Well, there you have it. I feel like we've exhausted the topic of lake monsters.
And to put it short, I don't think these three are real.
Yeah, they're not real. One of the less likely beings we've examined.
R.I.P. Nessie.
But Billy, remind the dear listeners what next week is going to bring.
Well, next week is going to be our season finale. We are taking a break for Christmas because what do you people want from us?
Yeah.
And next week, a storm cometh.
It is the end of days.
Because next week, a Mr. Sam Squatch will be making his. Oh, we're talking about Bigfoot. Who are we kidding? Finally, Bigfoot. Like I'm so hyped.
Like we're gonna break down the Bigfoot tape.
We're gonna break down Bigfoot sightings.
We're gonna talk about communist half Bigfoot soldiers. That's a real thing, people.
That is a real
It's
thing.
a real thing. We're gonna talk about it.
That was chimp. That was half chimp soldiers.
It overlaps with Bigfoot.
Yeah, why not? We might even throw some Yeti in there.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
they're pals. They hang out on the weekends.
We'll talk about the old, because like here's the thing about Bigfoot. Unlike the Loch Ness Monster, where there are some like kind of sketchy things that can be interpreted as a Loch Ness Monster dating back to like the 500s AD, Bigfoot legends go all the way back into like Native American mythology, because that's actually where the name Sasquatch came from. So yeah, we will be talking all about that Bigfoot next week, so look forward to that. Until then, you can follow us on social media. We are at monsters_myths on Twitter and at myths_monsters on Instagram. And until such time as we meet again, I am Billy Reed.
I am Curtis Cooper.
And we love you guys very, very much. And as always, stay spooky.
Buckle up, push and buckle up, wine. listening to the best college radio station, Horizon Radio, broadcasting from Indiana University Southeast New Albany.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. Investigators say a shooting in the U.S. state of New Jersey was a targeted attack on the Jewish community and police. Sarah Walton reports from New York.
5 people, including 2 suspected attackers, were found dead in a kosher grocery store following a standoff with police that lasted several hours. A police officer was also shot dead after trying to intervene. The mayor of Jersey City said a review of CCTV footage from the area shows the store was deliberately targeted. The attackers arrived at the scene in a stolen van before firing on shoppers and police with long guns. Emergency services and the bomb squad were called to the area and local schools were put on lockdown. 2 other police officers suffered minor injuries. I'm Sarah Walton in New York.
Russia says it will file lawsuits with the Court of Arbitration for Sport to challenge the wide-ranging sanctions imposed by the World Anti-Doping Agency. On Monday, the agency decided to endorse a 4-year global sports ban on Russia for non-compliance with doping rules and the manipulation of data. Ross Cullen has more.
The World Anti-Doping Agency's decision to strip Russia of the right to compete under the Russian flag in next year's Olympics in Tokyo and other world tournaments over the next 4 years was not a major surprise to Moscow, but it's still spoken out combatively, with the Speaker of the Upper House, the latest politician, to condemn the ruling. Valentina Matvienko said, "We cannot accept this decision. We must fight our corner in court and prove our case." She added that sports must be clear of doping and of politics. Meanwhile, the Russian boxing team has become the first to announce its abstention from next year's Olympics over the WADA ruling, saying it's unwilling to compete in the Olympics without the Russian flag. Ross Cullen, Moscow.
Greta Thunberg has become this year's Time magazine's Person of the Year. The magazine has held this tradition ever since the 1920s, but it's the first time they've crowned a teenager, making the 16-year-old Swedish climate change activist the youngest person ever to be named. Gillian Wolfe reports.
Thunberg has become a force to be reckoned with. Her signature no-nonsense style of speaking out against climate change has made her a symbol for youth across the world. To reduce her carbon footprint, the young activist sailed on a zero-emission boat to the U.S. in August to speak at the United Nations Climate Action Summit in New York. It's there where she scorned world leaders on their inaction. Her stern words, "How dare you," reverberating around the world. Her actions also putting her in the running for this year's Nobel Peace Prize, making her one of the youngest people ever to be nominated for that as well. U.S. President Donald Trump, Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the Hong Kong protesters, and the anonymous whistleblower who triggered Mr. Trump's impeachment inquiry were all in the running to become this year's Time magazine's Person of the Year.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You're listening to your voice of the Grenadiers, Horizon Radio, the student voice of IU
Now is the
Southeast.
time to start getting your research project ready for the 2020 Student Conference hosted by IUS.
One of that's over. I see your motives inside, decisions to hide.